Good afternoon. It's been a long time since I've done one of these videos or felt the need to do one of these videos. So forgive me if I take some time to kind of put my thoughts, but thanks for giving me the time and attention. I'm trying to be as humble as possible with this video because it is about things that people can get quite volatile and upset about, mostly the illegal immigration. Do we or don't we have problems with Islam in the UK? There's lots and lots going on, and I'll probably add to it as we go. But a guy that messages me back and forward from time to time on YouTube, he asked me the other day, he says, what do you make of the illegals coming across in the boats? And I know videos like this can get people into trouble, so I'll try and be as unemotional as the best way I can put it as to how I put my views across. And these views could be totally wrong, but just as a normal guy who's no trying to dazzle you in a studio with neon lights and fucking all the glitz and glamour to get your attention, I just want you to see if there are things wrong with the normal working class kind of just normal dad's view of the situation at the moment. And if we need to be corrected, then correct us, and we can have discourse and come to some sort of less tense atmosphere. But with regard to the illegal immigration, am I happy about it? No, I'm not, and I don't think many people are in the UK, and that includes not just your English, Scottish, Welsh and Irish. It includes the people who have immigrated here from all over the world who are now UK citizens, and the UK is their home. I would imagine if you've immigrated here or your parents immigrated here, and this is where you want to raise a family in peace and with dignity, and to go about your life and your religion or your non-religion, however you feel, with that kind of safety of this developed, civilized society. We need to be civil. So I would imagine everyone in the UK, if you have a logical mind and a sensible look at the news and information we get regarding the illegal immigrants, I think there's reason to be concerned. I don't know what the government's doing about it. Very little by the looks of things, and I can understand why that would get someone who lives in a different area to me where there is a lot of problems with illegals, because we don't have any here that I know of. We don't have any sort of trouble with illegal immigrants just yet. I know places not too far away that do have them, but we don't have them here yet. So I can understand if someone is having problems and it's caused by groups of illegals, they would lose control with their temper and not maybe react in the best way possible. So I can understand them as well. I don't want to villainise these people. But then going towards the riots were the news, and I mostly get my news from Twitter and YouTube and online, basically. Google searches and stuff. Not newspapers and things, and not because I'm a mad conspiracy theorist that thinks all the newspapers are propaganda. They seem to be, but I could be wrong. But where I get my news from is usually online. Now the riots and things appeared to me recently, and it was, they say what triggered it was this instance where harm and unspeakable acts happened to 3 kids, and the experience their parents and everyone from those kids outward, the ripple effect of that pain and that anger and that frustration, I can understand why a lot of these people, instead of looking at what happened, who did it, how it all came to be, that they've swept with a broad brush across everyone who's came to this country as of this bad, evil kind of way of life, when it's not the case. It's not the case at all from my life experience, which, albeit is anecdotal, I've had good and bad experiences with people that look exactly like me, or perhaps not as dashing and handsome as me, but you get my point. And I've had good and bad experiences with people who don't look like me, who originate from other parts of the world, don't look like me in any way, shape or form, but I've had good, well, they do it in a lot of ways, shapes and forms, but you know what I mean, ethnically, or the different race. And I've had good experiences with them and bad experiences then, so I tend to treat everyone by their fruits, how they behave round about me. And I'm not trying to tell people how to be, it's just how I am. What would I do with regard to the illegal immigration? And we'll touch on the kind of differences between the Christians and the Muslims in a moment. But with regard to the illegal immigrants, I think that the best that you can do in a civilised society that masquerades as it has a democratic electoral fairness about it, if you're not getting onto your local council or politician, if you're directly not engaging them and you're just shouting and screaming online, then really how concerned are you? Because then if you put pressure on these people that are alleged to represent us and they don't act, then next time around, if we have fair votes, we get someone who would try and represent the people a bit more precisely. We're certainly in a pickle, and it's something that I don't think can get resolved overnight. But I think if we could do better, we would do better at the moment. I think that we need to kind of look at it with a bit of respect and put our shoes in the other feet. But again, if I was to say I want to emigrate to France, and I know France have a incredibly strict immigration policy, and I think, fuck all that waiting about a year or two before they get back to me. If I can pay this gangster $3,000, he'll put me across in a boat, I'm into France, then I deal with it there in a more, deceptive manner. I would expect the French people who then engage me to be a little bit wary of me. I think that's common sense. So the people who are a little bit wary of illegal immigrants, I can understand that, because we know they came through a nefarious route. And some of them, the asylum seekers, they have other reasons for coming here, and I would say more legitimate reasons than someone who perhaps just wants to come and not contribute and assimilate with the society and stuff they want to take or abuse. That's it's certainly not on. I don't think that's unreasonable. Who knows? Because it seems like if you say things that are against the grain, that you could be arrested and jailed and things. So you must be cautious of how you proceed when you're putting your views into the domain. You may slip up and you may say something that might be encouraging people to be unreasonable or causing people to lose their grasp on reality and believe non-realities and fictions, which there are many of even online. Some of the videos and things you see just now, it's hard to believe what you see on the screen. That's why judge people on your real life interactions with them. Don't be scared to mix with the guy who's a Sikh or the guy who's a Muslim, just because online it paints this incredibly bad picture. If you look into what propaganda is, you'll get that. And war tactics, divide and conquer, they seem to be thrown about all the time. And there's usually no smoke without fire, but I won't go into that. Do I think there are people trying to divide us and conquer us? Of course there are. That's the human nature, is to divide and conquer regardless. There'll always be people wanting excess rather than modesty. But anyway, on to Muslims. I don't know all that much about Islam. I would like to know more about Islam and understand it, but I have this fear that Islam is being painted in a light that is not quite true. And I'm looking at it from a Christian perspective, and I hope I can make this understandable, because this is something for weeks and weeks and weeks that I've wanted to see if it's something that I'm maybe not seeing right, or something that others can agree with. That does seem to make sense. So here it comes. I have friends, and I'm a Christian, I have friends who are gay. Lovely people, love them, they're doing their best in life, and I wish them well. They, at a point, had this belief that Christians and their young women, that Christians thought that they should be killed, that they should be shunned from society, all this stuff. And it comes from people with an agenda to divide and conquer at some point telling them this and not giving the full context to the meaning of this. Now, you can look in the Bible. The King James Version is my favourite version of the Bible. I just love it because the words still have integrity and power and just directness. They're heavy-hitting words, as I'm sure that's why Muslims, is it Arabic? They're learning, not so even if you're born in the UK, an Islamic kid will learn the Quran in Arabic, as well as go to school and speak English and go get French at school and all these other things. These kids are doing this as well, because the words in the Quran in Arabic must hit in a different way, like a harder, more direct way. So they don't want the interpretation spilled too much. And I understand that the King James Version is interpreted from old languages into the language of the time. I get that. But from my understanding, the old language Bibles, there are versions that are agreed upon with people who look into this as a living, that the King James is like quite true to what the original language meant. And that's as far as I'll go on that. I don't want to talk about the different versions. It's just silly. But anyway, these girls believed at one point that Christians wished death upon them and stuff, and they could say parts of the Bible, not quote and verse, but parts of the Bible that said a sin punishable by death is homosexuality, all these things, but it was also murder, But what they don't know is this is part of the Old Testament in the Bible. The New Testament, when Jesus comes along, there's a reason why the Bible has the two books. So in the Old Testament, you can see how horrible the world was and how there was rule and order, but it was very brutal. It was brutal. Then Jesus comes along, the brutality ends, and then we have the gospel, the good news, Jesus Christ, who as Christians we don't see David Beckham as our icon and we want to be like Beckham. We don't see Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt or a Mr. Olympia or Jean-Claude Van Damme or something. We don't see these guys as a guy to try to aspire to be like. We see Jesus from our understanding of stories in the Bible and things like that about Jesus. And when we read the Bible, And I was having a conversation with a guy about this the other day. When we read the Bible, it's not to, and I'm not bashing the Muslims for remembering the Quran, but for me, and I could be totally wrong as a Christian, and when I read the Bible, which I've read many times, the Bible makes an impression on you, which changes you, and you see the world in a different way, just as the news does and TV shows do in your surrounding environment. But these girls were taught of the Old Testament, and they never taught about the forgiveness and understanding and tolerance, and it's no me who'll judge. I have no right to judge. I'm not going to play God. God judges. And I've got this fear that the parts in the Quran that refer to death of this type or that type, they may be carried out not by, how would you say, not philosophical Muslims, but people that have read the Quran and the Quran's touched their heart and they live by the Quran, but they don't need to intellectualize it so they can say in this book, in this chapter and verse, these types of people who the Quran's touched their heart. I think the impression wasn't to kill everyone. It's that people can be divided and people can, there are enemies in life, there are people, it's a moral story with a spirit, and it's the characters change through time. So we do have enemies in life, everyone does. There are people that want to see you fall on your face, and there are people that want to have you sacked for your job or your church burnt down or your mosque burnt down and things like that. These are your adversaries. I think we need more people from different backgrounds and cultures, and I love multiculturalism. I think it's great. Even as a young guy, if I was anywhere, let's say I went to Glasgow, and I would go through the bit that was like African Caribbean shops that sold food and drink and things from their culture, and I'd see all these black guys and black women like dressed like so cool. It was like so colourful, and it was like a rich culture and scene, and they always had cool music and things like that. Or you'd go past a part that was Eastern European and they had something else going on, and all the guys had a style, and they all seemed to have a rich culture and stuff. Whereas the general white British, and I use it broadly and I don't mean everybody, but there is like a greyness to that culture. Like the people, they hold nothing sacred. They don't hold religion, or they don't hold morality or philosophy or things that are worthwhile from my point of view. Yeah, it's cool to be into sports, but if your life is about sport only, or your life is about your job only, or your life is about your body or your material world, that's pretty wasteful of an experience in life, because we all know that time is limited. I don't know if you would get fulfillment from not having that belief in religion or spirituality or whatever people want to call it. I call it Christianity. Muslims have Islam, we have the Sikhs, and we have everybody who's different, but if we don't communicate and we don't kind of keep in touch with what we actually are as a people, when you don't know something, you get quite afraid of it. I think we try and get a better understanding. But I will finish quite shortly, and I want to talk a wee bit about the riots that I've seen, just briefly, and the police's response to the riots. And I know this has went on, and I hope I've came across quite clearly, because I haven't done a video like this in a couple of years, but I just feel in the beginning there was the word. So if I put the word out, people can correct me, or people can not agree with me, but help me enhance or deepen my thought or expand my thought of what I believe I understand at the minute. And I stand to be corrected. I certainly don't want dragged to a court for just having my personal understanding of things. But the riots, you see all the young team, and I don't know if it was on both sides. They just had a spirit to them and a visual stereotype. Like all the guys that the media claim to be on the UK anti-Islam, anti-Muslim, anti anybody not white and British side. They seem to have that. You just didn't get the vibe that there was a lot of like peaceful, not at the riots, but like generally speaking. I imagine all these people to be quite angry all of the time. And where does the anger come from? I think it's simply lack of understanding, because they're perhaps dedicating too much time to football or idolising the wrong types, incredibly violent people and not so nice people that don't have properly thought out logical views on the world worth being listened to. If all you can scream is anger and hatred, that's the example of the person that you will create if people follow you. Because that's the only side that they'll see. And we want to emulate, to hope that we're going through life on the right path. Hence why the Muslims have their prophets and everyone has their idols, and Christians have God. It's wild. I just think it's going to take a long time. I'd be interested to hear what people's ideas for resolve for these things could potentially be, or how you would perhaps speed up the process. But I just wanted to get something out, and I hope I got something out that was reasonably clear. But anybody who's followed my videos for a wee while and watched that, I hope you guys are doing good. I'm doing okay. All is well. I may, depending on how things goes, because you don't want to cast your pearls before swine. I don't want to be wasting my time making videos that aren't even useful. I'm not looking to get millions of views. If there's no one engaging, I don't see the point in using the platform. That's all. But if I hear from some of you guys, that would be cool. And again, I hope everyone's doing well. Again, very humble, no flashing lights, zero editing, just my anecdotal observations of things and some views that I hope don't get me put in the jail. Thank you.